Have you ever imagined a city so powerful and influential that even the rising empire of Rome was put at risk? Carthage, founded by the clever Phoenician princess Dido, flourished along the Mediterranean trade routes and achieved a rare splendor among the cities of antiquity. It was in this atmosphere of wealth, political intrigues, and heroic battles that figures like Hannibal Barca, the commander who dared to invade the Italian peninsula with war elephants, and Scipio Africanus, the brilliant young Roman who learned to fight by studying his enemy, emerged. Together, they wrote remarkable chapters in history that involved both major commercial conquests and epic duels for survival. Join me on this journey to understand how it all began, who these protagonists were, and what led Carthage from glory to ashes in the wars against Rome. We will traverse seas, snowy mountains, and battlefields, uncovering the reasons that transformed this rivalry into one of the fiercest in antiquity. But before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos packed with historical curiosities about the Roman Empire. The dawn of Carthage, the foundation and the seed of a great empire. Imagine the scene. Dido, a young Phoenician princess, escaped the tyranny of her brother in Tyre and arrived on the North African coast with a group of determined followers ready to start a new life. But what would she do to earn respect and establish a thriving city on foreign soil? When Dido landed in North Africa, the desert landscape and local tribes posed a gigantic challenge. However, the princess's charisma and negotiating skills earned her an interesting deal, a plot of land equivalent to what a simple ox hide could cover. Demonstrating her incredible intelligence, Dido cut the hide into thin strips, thereby expanding the granted area far beyond what the locals could have imagined. Thus, Carthage was born, a city designed to be a meeting point for trade routes, leveraging the maritime potential inherited from the Phoenicians. The early years of development were marked by the need to build peaceful alliances, secure supplies, and establish safe maritime routes. This process, initially slow, soon gained momentum with the arrival of more merchants and craftsmen from Tyre, eager to expand into new territories. Carthage prospered thanks to the talent of its inhabitants in handling the trade of metals, spices, and agricultural products. While Rome was still in its infancy as a republic, Carthage already boasted a merchant fleet that sailed throughout the Mediterranean basin. Gradually, the city became a magnet for travelers and traders, transforming, without Rome even noticing, into a power that could rival any other. The art of trade and explosive growth. Do you want to understand how a simple colony transformed into such a powerful economic hub that it would shake the foundations of Rome? Get ready. Carthaginian success was not a matter of chance, but the result of meticulous planning and daring. With the city established, Carthage's trade routes began to expand. They gradually controlled the key points along the maritime routes that connected Europe and the Middle East to Africa. Any vessel wishing to cross the Mediterranean passed through Carthaginian ports. This dominance meant not only economic power, but also the ability to politically influence distant peoples. Another trump card was the Carthaginian skill in building sturdy ships. Inherited from their Phoenician tradition, their navigational expertise was almost unmatched at the time. Fast vessels meant more goods transported and fewer losses to pirates and storms. The military fleet also began to stand out, protecting vital routes that supplied the city. While Rome managed its territories on the Italian peninsula, Carthage wove a true network of colonies and outposts. Trade grew in volume and value, bringing wealth to the city that helped finance mercenary armies, monumental constructions, and a strong diplomacy with neighboring kingdoms. Have you ever wondered how this economic growth influenced Carthage's trajectory towards conflict with Rome? Hit the like button now, so we can continue bringing you stories as impactful as this one. Territorialism and diplomacy, expansion beyond African shores. What if I told you that Carthage wasn't limited only to its maritime routes and, in the first centuries, expanded its influence to Sicily, Sardinia, and the Iberian Peninsula? This strategic move opened new doors and brought about new conflicts. As Carthage consolidated its trade routes, it identified opportunities in other regions. Sicily, for instance, was a place particularly rich in cereals and located extremely close to the Italian peninsula. Having partial control of this island allowed the Carthaginians to position themselves perfectly to monitor the flow of Roman or Greek ships navigating the central Mediterranean. In these new possessions, Carthage rarely adopted a posture of complete subjugation of the local peoples. Instead, it preferred to form trade agreements and offer protection in exchange for tributes. This softer approach ensured less internal resistance and more economic prosperity for both sides. However, as Carthaginian influence grew, it clashed with Roman interests, which began to see this expansion as a direct threat. Gradually, tensions accumulated. The Romans, ever vigilant, viewed every Carthaginian advance as a step closer to undermining their own hegemony. In contrast, the Carthaginians believed that after centuries of Phoenician tradition, they deserved to dominate Mediterranean trade. This latent rivalry would soon explode into a series of devastating conflicts. The first spark, the trigger of the Punic Wars. Have you heard of a small conflict that, like a spark, ignited the greatest rivalry of antiquity? Well, the First Punic War began with something seemingly local, yet it revealed the magnitude of the battle between Carthage and Rome. Sicily was the trigger. Disputes between cities on the island led Rome and Carthage to take opposite sides. What initially seemed simple turned into an open, large-scale confrontation. Carthage dominated the sea, but Rome, realizing its weakness, built a fleet in record time, even copying the design of Carthaginian ships. The corvus, a Roman contraption that transformed naval battles into land fights, turned the tide in Rome's favor. By boarding enemy ships, Roman legionaries could engage in hand-to-hand combat, where their discipline was unbeatable. This innovation surprised the Carthaginians, accustomed to winning at sea, and proved fatal in numerous engagements. After years of battles, Carthage suffered a heavy defeat. Losing Sicily was humiliating and resulted in enormous reparations. The decline was not immediate, but Carthaginian pride was deeply wounded. And when pride is hurt, vengeance often becomes the spark that rekindles even greater wars. Did you already know this intriguing detail about Roman war machines? Leave your comment and share your thoughts. The art of Hannibal, the genius who vowed revenge. What would happen if one of the greatest military geniuses in history decided to cross icy mountains with war elephants just to attack the heart of Rome? Hannibal Barca did exactly that. Hannibal Barca grew up listening to stories of how Rome had humiliated his beloved city. As a young man, he swore eternal hostility towards the Romans. With an athletic build and a brilliant mind, he quickly stood out in the Carthaginian army, displaying unparalleled tactical skill. As an adult, he began his journey towards the Iberian Peninsula, where Carthage was attempting to regroup. There, he consolidated his forces and devised a plan that would catch Rome by surprise. Invade Italy overland, crossing the Alps with a large army accompanied by war elephants. This feat, considered almost impossible, demonstrated Hannibal's audacity, and it worked. The Roman legions were defeated in epic battles, such as at Lake Trasimene, and most notably in the bloody Battle of Cannae. With every victory, Hannibal proved that the myth of Roman invincibility could be shattered. The sense of panic in Rome was so great that many believed the city was on the verge of collapse. Yet, despite all his military achievements, Hannibal did not deliver the final blow. Lacking sufficient logistical support and reinforcements from the Carthaginian government, he had to remain on Italian soil until the Romans counterattacked in another way. Scipio Africanus, the Roman who learned from his enemy, who could stop a general who seemed unstoppable. The answer lay in a young Roman commander, Scipio, who learned from Hannibal's own strategies to confront him. Scipio Africanus, still relatively young, observed Rome's defeats and meticulously studied Carthaginian tactics. Even without the experience of seasoned veterans, he possessed an open mind and innovative vision. Instead of directly confronting Hannibal in Italy, he chose to strike Carthage in another strategic location, the Iberian Peninsula. By capturing important Carthaginian fortresses in the region, Scipio not only undermined Hannibal's financial support, but also cut off vital supply routes. By then, the Carthaginian situation had become increasingly complicated. Unable to count on reinforcements, Hannibal's ability to remain in Italian territory gradually diminished. Scipio's final bold step was even more daring, invading Africa and attacking Carthage's very defences. Alarmed, the Carthaginian council recalled Hannibal to defend the homeland. It was during this return that Carthage's fate was sealed. At Zama, Scipio defeated Hannibal, ending the Second Punic War and imposing new, unfavorable conditions on the Carthaginians. Have you ever wondered how this event shaped the destiny of an empire? Hit the like button now so we can keep bringing you stories as impactful as this one. The temporary resurrection. Carthage tries to rise again. Could it be that after so many losses, Carthage would have the strength to rise again? The truth is that even battered, its commercial spirit remained alive. At the end of the Second Punic War, Carthage paid heavy tributes, lost important territories, and had its military forces severely limited. Yet the Carthaginian people still dominated maritime routes and possessed a resilient mercantile spirit. Gradually, the city began to prosper again along the margins of its own territory. The creativity of local merchants and producers had not been destroyed. By investing in agricultural production and the export of manufactured goods, Carthage regained part of the economic prestige that once defined it. Many Romans watched in surprise at the speed with which their former enemy rose again, putting certain political factions in Rome on high alert. In particular, Cato the Elder did not look kindly upon this resurgence. Every chance he got, he repeated, "Carthago delenda est." Carthage must be destroyed. For Cato and other Roman figures, as long as Carthage existed, it would always be a potential threat. Tension began to mount once again, like a volcano on the verge of eruption. The Third Punic War, when the end became inevitable. Imagine living in a city surrounded by enemies who demand its extinction. That was the atmosphere in Carthage on the eve of the Third Punic War. In an attempt to defend itself against attacks from neighboring tribes, Carthage violated the agreements that limited its military power. For Rome, this was the perfect pretext for a final offensive. The siege of the city lasted for years, yet the Carthaginian spirit resisted bravely, despite all the restrictions imposed by the Romans. Carthage no longer had strong allies or the might of its former self. Even so, men, women, and even children united in its defense, crafting weapons from whatever was available and transforming buildings into makeshift fortifications. The heroism of these citizens became legendary, showing that the will to live and fight for one's freedom can overcome any obstacle. However, the Romans were relentless. Commanded by Scipio Aemilianus, the adopted grandson of Scipio Africanus, they finally captured the city in 146 BC. The result was near total destruction. Carthage was burned, thousands of its inhabitants were enslaved, and its territory was converted into a Roman province. The great city that once nearly toppled Rome had at last been reduced to definitive ashes. Did you already know this intriguing detail? Leave your comment and share your ideas. After the ashes, the rebirth of Carthage as a Roman city. Could it be that after so much devastation, these lands would remain abandoned forever? The answer is surprising. Carthage would indeed have a second act. Years later, even Julius Caesar recognized the strategic value of the location. He ordered the reconstruction of Carthage, but Caesar's death interrupted the plans. It was up to Augustus, Rome's first emperor, to resume the project. A new city was erected upon the ancient ruins, now under Roman architecture and administration. This rebirth transformed the region into one of the most important provinces of the empire, supplying wheat and olive oil on a grand scale. Administrative buildings, Roman roads, and a revamped port spurred development. New Carthage became an economic pillar, competing in wealth with cities such as Alexandria. However, the memory of ancient Carthaginian glory never truly faded. Among the ruins and Roman constructions, the presence of a lost past could still be felt. This contrast between past and present serves as a powerful reminder of how dynamic history is. What was once the pinnacle of a civilization can quickly become the stage for another power to emerge. The immortal legacy. Why Carthage still fascinates us. For many, Carthage is just a footnote in the story of the Punic Wars. But if we look more closely, we find valuable lessons in strategy, resilience, and culture that still resonate today. The Phoenician tradition, naval innovations, commercial diplomacy, and the courage of its leaders forged an undeniable legacy in history. Hannibal's campaign across the Alps remains a symbol of audacity and military planning. His achievements continue to influence the study of warfare tactics even today. Scipio Africanus, in turn, reminds us of the importance of adapting strategies, learning from one's enemy and respecting their capabilities. Rome, by overcoming Carthage, consolidated its path to becoming an all-encompassing empire, yet it was inevitably shaped by the cultural and commercial exchanges with the Carthaginians. Thus, Carthage is not merely a city destroyed by fire. It is a story about how far a civilization can go when it combines ingenuity, courage, and determination. In the rubble of battles, we find reflections on power, ambition, and time, forces that transform and leave an indelible mark. The history of Carthage is an eternal reminder that glory can arise, expand, and eventually fall, yet the legacy endures. While many remember only the flames that consumed the city, few pay attention to its ingenious foundation, the feats of Dido, the brilliance of Hannibal, and the rebirth under Augustus's hand. Each chapter of this narrative shows us how empires are born, develop, and may succumb to forces greater than themselves or their own hubris. If you enjoyed this journey back in time and want more fascinating stories, subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share this video with your friends. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video about ancient Rome and its magnificent empire.